Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friends and Fiction Show. I'm Patti Callahan Henry.
I'm Kristin Harmel.
And this is Friends and Fiction. We are 4 New York Times bestselling authors who gather every single week to pull back the curtain on the writing life and talk about the books that you cancel your plans to read.
Now, in addition to this web show, we have a Facebook group of nearly 350,000 members, a YouTube channel, a podcast, an Instagram feed, a separate book club, and a killer newsletter on Substack. We're pretty busy. We are a book community like no other.
We really are. There's not another book community that does all of the aforementioned things. And the reason is because we love the story behind the story. And we love talking about the moment when a book grabs you and won't let you go. And we are here, just like we have been every week for the past 6 years, to do just that.
And of course, you can find out more about us and all we have to offer at friendsandfiction.com.
Tonight, we are so excited to take you behind the pages of a new novel, a debut called Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt by author Ben Reeves. He will be joining us from the UK. So let's talk about Ben behind his back before we bring him on. So Ben lives in Peterborough, UK with his wife and 2 children. We need to ask him how old his kids are. I didn't ask him that backstage. When he's not writing, he paints, he makes music, and he works as a web designer for a book printing company. He is an all-around creative guy.
Absolutely. And this, unbelievably, honestly,
I can't believe
wait till we get into this. This is his debut novel. It's a #1 indie next pick and a buzzy book that everyone is talking about. Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt is told from the point of view of death, and it explores our relationship to death in our everyday lives. An early draft of the novel won the International 2024 Bath Novel Award, and the novel was just officially published on July 7th.
But before we get into the novel, there are a couple, as usual, housekeeping items to talk about. Among all the amazing things we do at Friends and Fiction, we really want to make sure you're not missing out on our newsletter, which is on something called Substack. But it's essentially our newsletter. There are some incredible things there, including an exclusive bonus Q&A this week with Ben that you can't read anywhere else. We recently had a gorgeous Father's Day essay from Lisa Scottolini that made me tear up a little bit, plus exclusive Q&A interviews with Emily Giffen, Jane Green, Allison Brennan, and even our friend Marie Benedict. And you do not want to miss out on all of this amazing extra content that isn't even on the show. So make sure you're subscribed.
And just a quick reminder about our Friends and Fiction 2026 subscription box, which is available through Oxford Exchange. Now, this is a subscription to receive each of the hosts of Friends and Fiction's books on the day they're released. Christy's book has already come out. Mary Kay's book has already come out. So if you order now, you'll receive both of those. You can add on Patti's book. And then my new title, Meet Me in Paris, will ship in very quickly because it comes out July 28th, which is right around.
I can't believe it's July 28th.
It's already here, almost.
I know, it's already here. Yeah.
I feel like we've been talking about it for ages. So each autographed book comes with a special exclusive Friends and Fiction branded gift available only in this package. So visit Oxford Exchange to get yours while supplies last.
I can't let that go by. I'm counting. That's in 6-7 days that your novel comes out. 10 days.
Insane. It's insane. Yeah.
I remember the day you had the idea. I mean, time is
That's the beautiful thing about, it's funny. People often ask, with friends in fiction, are you guys friends in real life? Of course we are. We've been on this journey with each other through every step of the process. I know everything about your new book that's coming out. I mean, and I think we feel like it's our own, even if we haven't
I
written
know.
it.
I have butterflies that it's in a week.
Yeah.
All right, Alan, will you please bring Ben on? We're dying to talk to him.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi,
How's it
Ben.
going?
We're awesome. We're really happy to talk to you. So welcome to Friends in Fiction. Congratulations on the publication and all the buzz for Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt. Are you feeling overwhelmed?
Kind of, yeah. It's the response has been incredible. You obviously have like in your mind a feeling of what you hope's going to happen, but this has surpassed like everything that I dreamed of. So it's great.
It's really been incredible watching the buzz happen over the last few months and seeing it get the #1 indie next pick and watching everybody talking about it. So let's talk about it. Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt is this tender, kind of philosophical novel in which death is not a monster, but a lonely, gentle man named Travis, whose love for our midwife and her daughter forces him to confront the beauty and agony of not death, but of being alive. And I need to tell you, Ben, I was on paperback tour a couple months ago, back in March, right after Winter Institute. And every bookstore that I went to, the bookseller said to me, Patti, you have to read this book by this debut novelist, Ben Reeves. By the 5th bookstore, I was like, fine, I get it. I hear it, but everybody knew it was a book that I would love. So I'm going to begin this conversation with the first question that came to my mind the minute I heard about it. I must know about the first time you thought, I want to write from death's point of view.
Sure. Well, I knew that I wanted to write a book about death because death is something that's always really fascinated me. And I like to say, not even in a morbid or like grim way, but just in the sense that when we think about life, when we think about death, rather, it can enrich our lives a little bit more because we take our time, a bit more preciously. I don't think I've ever said this in public, but I was actually at a zoo when I came up with it, and my kids were like playing. I was having a bit of downtime with my wife, and we were just watching them play at the park that was at the zoo, and for some reason in that moment, I remember thinking death could be the main character, and if that's the case, I want it to be my version of death. I don't want it to be this like grim, dark, kind of morbid guy. I want it to be something a bit different. And it sort of sprung from there, really.
That gave me chills because you had the idea in the middle of living your life in a beautiful way, being present to your wife and your kids in a moment of downtime. It didn't come to you while you were having grim thoughts of being gone. How did it feel at first? Did you find the rhythm naturally right away?
It took a little while to figure out, who is Travis, because it's a real kind of gift when you get an idea that you really love. You want to do it justice, and I spent a lot of time like, okay, who would he be? I think he'd be lonely because you can imagine being death. If you're going to watch every single person you ever meet die, you're not going to make friends very easily.
Yeah.
Because you just need to have that distance. And yet I wanted him to be someone who's like a good listener and will actually spend time with people and really like treat his like job with the utmost care and respect, even though he has to have this kind of emotional distance. And because I walk a lot as well, I like the idea that he's a bit of a wanderer, and he really has this almost sixth sense, like paying attention to all the tiny details that we would miss. And that from there, it kind of naturally unfolded. It was just a really beautiful space to be in. And I miss it, actually. I'll never write from his point of view again, but I really do miss being in that space. It was
Never
a lot
say
of fun.
never, Ben.
Well,
Every time
yeah.
you say never, we do it. So
Yeah, you never know. But yeah, we'll see. But I loved being in Travis's head, and it's probably I never felt as clear as well as writing that book, and I've tried to sort of keep that with me, and I hopefully pass that on to the readers. yeah, I just felt so aware of everything. Because I had to, I wanted to take all these tiny details, the smallest things, you just see like, I like to use the example of like a stuffed rabbit left by a fence post, and it gets your mind going, like, who left that there? Do they miss it? Was it an accident? And yeah, I hope that through Travis, it gives this sense of paying a bit more attention to the things that actually matter to you, and maybe a bit less of the things that just don't.
I love that.
No, absolutely. I feel like that really came through on the page. Now, talking a little bit more about Travis, he's just an ordinary guy living in an ordinary town. He comforts people in their final hours. He doesn't judge and he doesn't change their fate. And the central rule seems to be death supports but does not intervene. So that non-intervention creates a lot of the emotional tension in the book. Can you talk to us a little bit about deciding on that rule for Travis?
Yeah, definitely. I knew I didn't want him to be any kind of judge. He's not there to pass any kind of judgment. That maybe comes later, who knows? He is just almost, the word I like to use is an usher. He's an usher, yeah, to take you from where you are now to whatever may follow. And because I'm kind of quite chilled, I don't, I don't pass judgment easily, and I'm quite a kind of stoic person. I wanted him to have that because it just felt natural. But you're right, that does then cause a real tension in the story, because as he falls in love with this little family that live across the hall, he maybe kind of wants to intervene a bit, and we get to see how that goes.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. So, how hard was it, I guess, for you as a writer, and also how hard was it for Travis not to intervene as he starts to feel alive? I mean, I think he's really undergoing a huge transformation as we see the book play out.
Yeah, he does. And that was actually really fun to play with, because I wanted it to be a slow transformation. I didn't want him to suddenly be like, oh, okay, I'm going to forget everything that I know about being death and I'm just going to intervene. I wanted it to feel earned throughout the story. So there were times, there's some deaths in the book that are really sad, and you kind of really want Travis to change it, but he just can't. That's not who he is. That's not what he's there for. And that, I think, as a reader even, is kind of just really like a delicious tension, because it's sort of, it's so, you get it, why he's not changing it, but you kind of really want him to, and we get to see how he slowly does change throughout the course of the book.
Yep, there's one, no spoilers, where I was like, well, just tell them to XYZ, just do something. And part of that was I think Kristin felt the same way, was as a mom. I know as a dad too, like, I can control this, I can fix this, when that is the opposite of his job, which brings us to the woman who changes everything. Let's talk about Dahlia. So she is the woman who lives across the hall from Travis in this apartment complex. She is a midwife, and so she obviously brings life into the world, while Travis's death, obviously, the opposite. In an interview, you described death as both intimate and cosmic. And I wrote that down because I would say the same thing about birth. So possibly death and midwife aren't opposite, but parallel? What do you think?
I like that a lot. Yeah. And I loved having that kind of almost symmetry to it. And yeah, I don't remember saying that, but I love it, the intimacy and the cosmicness of it. And one thing I really play with in this book is that sort of sense of, actually, the small things in life are huge, and some of the big things are actually quite small. And playing with that, and you get to see all sorts of different vignettes of things that we couldn't possibly see. There's a vignette of like planets colliding, and it's all weaved into life. And with Dahlia, I think what he's really drawn to with Dahlia is the fact that she's actually quite normal. We're told to often make our characters extraordinary in some way, but Dahlia's kind of normal. She's extraordinary in that she's a great single mum, and that she's working and she's trying so hard. And what Travis is really drawn to, I think, is just how is that kind of family life that he'll never get to have, and he kind of covets that. He would love to just be a dad and be a friend and be a part of that. And it's the one thing that he just never quite feels like he can allow himself to be. But Dahlia, through his, against his better judgment, he just can't help himself. And particularly Layla, Dahlia's daughter, who I'm sure we'll talk about, he's just drawn to them in a way that he hasn't felt maybe ever, or just in a very, very long time.
Yeah, so why make her a midwife? What was it about that choice? Do you even remember making the choice, or did you just know she would be?
Yeah, I wanted her to have a job, and I went through a few in my mind. I was like, okay, I like to have things that are like almost symbolic or thematic in some way. So I was like, okay, she could be a teacher. She could maybe, I think librarian went through my head. And as soon as I stumbled on midwife, I was like, wait, that's awesome. It's got to be a midwife. And I also wanted her to suffer from anxiety a little bit. So to be a midwife, you can imagine that must be so stressful a lot of the time. And we get to see, a particularly traumatic birth that she oversees. And it feels, in hindsight, it feels so inevitable, but obviously you have to still get to that point. I'm really glad that sometimes I worry, like, imagine if I didn't think of that. That would be, the book would be a bit worse, wouldn't it? So it's just, those are kind of gifts, and you have to hold on to them as a writer. You're just so glad that you came up with it.
They feel like little gifts, right?
Yeah.
Like when you finally stumble on it. And I think it's so good. So many of our listeners are aspiring writers to know that everything just doesn't happen right away.
No.
We don't have the whole plot, everybody's job, everybody's function in the story. It takes a lot of pondering, thought, tripping over other jobs, librarian, teacher, until you land with something that gives you that zing, which you did with Dahlia.
Yeah, absolutely. It does not all come at once. And you have to kind of trust the process a little bit. Like there were so many points while writing this book, I'm like, this is crap. This is not coming out the way I want it to. And
you do that all the time.
Yeah. And you just have to keep writing, don't you? Because you can't get to the good until you've gone through a bit of the bad. And you have to get the words on the page and be like, okay, that bit was good, and then that bit not so good, but at least I've got the good bit. And you just keep going, and eventually it all kind of comes together if you're lucky.
It's so true. And you can fix the not so good, but you can't fix what's on the page yet, right?
No. I like to think of it as like sculpting, because you can't make a sculpture if there's no clay. And a blob of clay is ugly, but at least you can do something with it, but you've got to have the clay in the first place.
No, that's such a good way to put it. Okay, so I really want to talk a little bit about Layla, who is Dahlia's boisterous 8-year-old daughter. She befriends Travis, inviting him into her life. She's kind of the first, his first exposure to this family, it seems like. So he tries to resist, but of course she is irresistible. She's funny and witty, and her voice just jumps off the page. So we fall in love with her right along with Travis. She has kind of an innocence and an openness with Travis that the adults in the book can't and don't have. What did you want Layla to awaken in Travis that Dahlia alone could not?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So I should say that at the time I had an 8-year-old daughter. She's now 12. But at the time, I think she was 8 or 7. It was in 2023 that I wrote it. What I really wanted with Layla was that kind of openness. And so Travis has a little hobby that he likes to do when he's not being deaf, which is that he restores photos. Layla takes a lot of photos, and she, similar to Travis, she sees the things that other people might miss. So she takes photos of things that kind of don't matter, an orange peel on the side of the road, or just something, so small, but to her it means something. And Travis can kind of see that as well. And she very much invites him in, and he actually rejects it at first. She invites him to her birthday party, and we've already seen him kind of reject a cat that kept coming in. So he's very much he's going to reject Layla's invitation, and she gets very upset at that. But slowly, I wanted it to be a slow burn relationship. I didn't want it to just suddenly be, okay, he's now part of their lives. And Layla, bless her, she's so curious and so kind. And she really doesn't like that she knows he's on his own. She knows he's just in that room on his own, just listening to opera and restoring photos. She hates that. She doesn't want him to be on his own. She wants him to come over and play video games and just have dinner. And so it's very much like almost like the way Travis is an usher from life into death. She's kind of an usher from him out of that room into their lives, which I didn't really think about until I just said it. But I think that's what it is.
Death into life. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are not just interviewers. We are psychoanalysts.
So I appreciate it.
That's what this book is really about.
We let you realize these things all on your own.
I'm definitely using it again. So I appreciate that.
That was well, since you already talked about it, I will say I wouldn't have given the spoiler, but when he turned down that birthday invite, I was like, Ben Reeves, what are you doing to us?
Yeah.
That little girl is going to go home and cry in her princess tutu dress and like, it's going to kill me. Oh my gosh. But
I had to have that moment where you see, okay, this is who Travis is. Even though he's so kind and gentle, even despite all of that, he still has to maintain that distance.
To protect.
Yeah. And then it means all the more when he does eventually, get drawn in. Yeah.
So there are so many messages in this novel. We could have a whole psychoanalytic episode on with Buddhist underpinnings of what death teaches us in life. But of course, the one thing it seemed to say to me, and you already mentioned it, is pay attention to the little things in your life. So I want to read a line that you wrote. In these tiny moments, when the spectacle is stripped away, when there is no reason for the day, what's left appears to be something true, something fundamental to being a person. Like, I get choked up even. I'm looking at Kristin. She's trying not to cry too. Yeah. Like, we're both big softies, but these bits of wisdom are all over the novel, like this river of insight. So you have said that you write more from instinct than plotting. Did these really wise insights surprise you when they hit you?
Yeah, they did. And it's hopefully never a case of me pointing to the reader and saying, this is how you should feel. It unfolds through Travis learning these things. What that line that you just read, it's very much Travis realizing, okay, this is kind of what it is to be a person.
To be a person, yeah.
Yeah. And one of my other favorites is just Dahlia looking at her two daughters, and I think the line is
that line.
She has two daughters and they're beautiful. That's all it is. She's just looking at them and realizing that. And I think we go through our lives so much just not realizing and getting annoyed at things that just don't matter when you've got so much beauty all around you all the time. And obviously we're all going through really tough things, and some people more than others, but there's still beauty to be found. I really believe that. They didn't all come at once. It was very much a journey for Travis and for me. I think there were things I already believed, but I'd never really articulated, and I wanted to know how I felt, particularly seeing my kids growing up. It's obviously a cliche, but it does go so quick.
It does.
Yeah, you're just seeing that time pass. You're like, I want to savor this. I want to know, how do I feel? Like, am I paying enough attention? And it's a huge message of the book is just pay attention to the things that actually do matter to you.
Yep,
absolutely. I think this is one of those books that as a reader, you walk away from with something you didn't have before. And it's a reminder of that. It's a gift, I think, to the people who read this, because this is the kind of book and the kind of message that really stays with you for a long time. I wanted to ask you about the connections in the novel. From the prologue to Dahlia, her daughters, and more, these connections are made slowly and with great effect. Did you know ahead of time who would be connected to who and how?
Well, so yes, there are a lot of connections in the book. I think I had a rough kind of list in my head of the sorts of people I wanted to include. I wanted a real mixture. I wanted some, poor people and rich people. I wanted old people and young people, and maybe like a sick person, and like someone who's ready to die and someone who's really not ready to die. The connections came later, I think. It's like, okay, because it's all set in this one town, maybe maybe that person served that person in a shop, or there's maybe even connections that aren't apparent on the page. But that was a lot of fun because the book is sort of told in these vignettes. We get to see lots of different moments of Travis spending time with people. But it hopefully it all feels like this one world and this one story, which I think is beautiful, because it's like we're all living these separate lives. All three of us right here, we're living completely separate lives, and yet we are all. It sounds so silly, but we are all part of this one story.
Yeah.
And it was. I really wanted to explore that within this little town.
I really like that. Okay, so I read that you wrote on a Bluetooth typewriter. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Talk to us about that. And
Sure.
how did that work?
I don't have it. It's over there, but it's basically just this like black typewriter. It's just a keyboard, but they call it a Bluetooth typewriter. You can just slot your phone in the top, and I love it because I've just got a real blank, like black notes app, white text, black background, and no distractions. It's just me and the screen and the words, and I can take that anywhere. I can just go in the garden or wherever I feel like. I like to go into different places to get a bit more inspiration, and I really like that. And then at the end of the session, I just email it to myself, and then I can put it in the document. I really don't like opening the document of the manuscript and just start typing into that. It makes me feel ill. It's like I feel like I'm being judged. Yeah, I feel like I'm being judged by all the writing that's already in the document. And it's like, well, this isn't as good as that. Sorry, this isn't as good as that. I like to start afresh every time, blank page. I'm just writing this particular scene as well as I can possibly write it. And I write a lot of longhand as well. And that's fun because I like to. It's cool. You can like keep that, and it's like, oh, there's loads of like everything was beautiful in that notebook or whatever. I love it. And I wore my last one out, so I had to buy another one.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love that. I've it's funny, we talk about process a lot on here, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone write a book exactly that way before. I love hearing something new. That's really cool. Okay, now without spoilers, as you were writing this, did you know how it was going to end? Did you write toward that ending that you already knew, or was it something that kind of came to you along the way?
I knew that it was going to have a bittersweet, hopefully uplifting ending in some way. I never just want to write a book that's sad for the sake of being sad and just makes people feel like rubbish at the end of reading it. I want, there are books like that, aren't there? And you sort of think, well, what's even the point? Like, I just feel gross after reading that. I don't want to do that. I want to offer people something, and hopefully they come away feeling better than they did when they went away. Maybe not at first, it makes people cry as well. The particular ending came a bit slower. In a way, it was kind of natural where the story was going. The events that happen. If it's going to have an uplifting ending, try not to say too much. But I wanted it to be a celebration at the end. Absolutely.
And it was.
Yeah,
as well as bittersweet. Some people say they know like down to the very last line. And I always have a vague feeling like that. But back to books being sad just to be sad. I just finished a book, One Shall Not Mention. And I set it down and I said, could one good thing have happened to somebody? Just like one good thing. Yeah. Like give us something. I was so like despondent, but that's definitely not how it feels reading this one.
Well, thank you.
You talked a lot about how Travis is gentle, how he can't intervene, but we haven't talked about his feelings. So there is this line from Travis. It says, I feel a great many things, maybe everything, but that in itself is a kind of numbness. I'd like to be smaller. I would die for that.
Yeah, I believe that's quite near the end. And I wanted to, it's not often, there's so much sadness in the book. There's uplifting bits as well, but there is obviously naturally a lot of sadness because it's about death. But that sadness rarely comes from Travis himself. And I wanted to just take that moment to explore what would it actually be like to have to do this job.
And to feel everything.
Yeah. It would just be, props to Travis, because I couldn't do it. It would be just the most devastating thing, but he does it, and he has to do it, and it's I like that. I would like to be smaller. I'm pretty happy with that line. Thank you.
We are too.
Yeah, no, God, there were so many beautiful lines in this book. And speaking of beautiful lines, the title comes from Slaughterhouse-Five. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that came to be part of this book and how it wound up as your title?
Yeah, I'm going to try and give a slightly different answer, because I get asked this a lot, and so the quick version is that it's that book is very much about death, which mine is as well. It's quite mysterious in that book. We don't quite know what it means, but there's a sense that it's meant somewhat ironically, because obviously lots of things do hurt. And I always say that I like that it's in past tense, because it's almost like you can only really say that at the end, looking back, everything was beautiful. There's like a defiance to it, like a real, like, do you know what? Despite everything, I'm going to try and find the beauty. But the thing that I want to say that I don't say very often is that wasn't the original title. The original title was Dance of the Mayflies, which I like, but it doesn't really mean anything. Which, if you wanted to sell a book, it kind of has to mean something. And so they kind of said to me, right, we don't like the title. Do you want to come up with like 10 more options?
10 more. How about one more?
Yeah. Luckily, I'd already written 10 more, because I was trying to brainstorm it myself. And that was one. And I never imagined that that's the one they would go for. But I'm really glad they did, because I was walking home one day, got an email. I just saw that phrase. I was like, oh, I didn't see the rest of the email. I just saw that phrase. I was like, right, that they're going to say that's the title. And I think it's really beautiful. Quite long for a title, but why not? It really sums up the book, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and it makes it sound like such a big book. Like it has big book energy to it, which we can already see it's landing that way for sure.
Yeah. Which is funny, because it's a little book.
It is, but it's a big emotion. It's a
big, like an important book we should all be reading, basically.
Like it covers the encompassment of human feeling and being human. I, as a writer, so admire the way you swoop up or even down into someone's mind. Like you just said that the title was The Dance of the Mayflies. You even swoop into the POV of a mayfly and a worm. Talk to us about how that felt. Did you plan on it? How did you get into each one of those minds? It was absolutely astounding.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I've been asked that one before. So I'm kind of I like to think I'm a creative guy, and I have all these ideas and thoughts, and I always, I think, whatever novel I write, it'll always be a kind of almost a collection of images and nature and all these different things. And I wanted a way that I could really use that and make it all make sense. So for me, every time we see a worm or a deer in the woods or planets colliding in the book, it's still somehow through Travis's eyes, because he is so connected to just everything going on around him.
Yeah.
And because of who he is, it really gave me this freedom to go a bit crazy and a bit wild and just have a lot of fun and just add splashes of color and really, I love those bits. They're some of my favorite bits, because they just really give it this whole other dimension.
Yeah. Well, it did. And it also gave us a breather,
Yeah, you need that every now and
And
again.
to go back to this idea that the big things aren't always so big and the small things are sometimes the biggest. And so we get this kind of in and out in that way. That I do want to talk about the gray town. That is what you call it. I don't think we ever give the town a name.
No, we don't.
If we did, it totally fell over me.
No, we don't. I wanted to give a sense that actually this could be anywhere in theory. That it could be.
Okay.
it could be a town 5 miles from where you live, depending on where you live, obviously. But it's actually kind of set where I live, which is Peterborough.
Okay.
It is a grey town, but it's also it's like concrete everywhere, and trees and grass and flowers everywhere. It's like this real battle between decay and life, which is obviously perfect for a book like this.
Yeah.
I got so much inspiration just from walking around, and it is kind of a grey town. It's like it always feels very quiet, like it's trying its best to sprout, but it's never quite makes it. It's always, even on Saturday night, it's normally a bit subdued. And I've never written a book set where I lived before, so that was a whole gift in itself. I could just take direct inspiration.
And there's a garden in the gray town that's very important in the novel, but it's this little oasis of growth in this town. So you have this, the train tracks with terrible things going on, and then this oasis of a garden. And you just do such a great job putting those two things up against each other in that way. All right, everyone, before we keep going, and there's more to chat with Ben about, I want to remind everyone who's watching and listening to rush out right now, if you haven't already, and buy your copies of Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt. And the perfect place to do that is in our Friends in Fiction shop on bookshop.org. Well, you'll not only be getting it at a discount, but all of your purchases support our show, Ben, and why we started this in the first place, indie bookstores nationwide, for real, because Bookshop has raised over $50 million for indie bookstores. So shop there online when you cannot get out to an indie in person. So then I really want to know, when Kristin and I were reading it and texting each other, I know I felt something shift in me when I read it. Kristin said she can't stop thinking about it, and others have too. Did this novel change you in the way you see the world at all?
Yeah, I think it did. I think it made me a bit calmer.
Oh, nice.
I used to panic about this stuff a lot, particularly the passing of time, seeing my kids grow up. I was obsessed with just like, there's like 52 weeks in a year, but like 52 as a number is like nothing. So like I've got like this, that's all I've got. And then then that's the difference between them being 4 years old and 5 years old. Like, so I really like get wound up about it. But it was kind of catharsis to really think about it and talk about it a bit more. Don't get me wrong, like I'm still, I would say I'm not so much scared of death as just like dying at the wrong time, or dying when, there's still things to do.
Yeah.
But this definitely gave me a piece. I needed to get it out. I wrote it quite quick, and I think that's partly why, just to have that kind of, that real catharsis with it.
It's amazing.
I love that. I love that feeling of our own books changing us at the core. Like we've delved into something we needed to solve, or we needed to solve, and found something we didn't expect sometimes. I love that. Okay, so Ben, sadly, our time together is coming to an end. But before we let you go, can you tell us where we can find out more about you and where people can find you online?
Of course. So the best place at the moment is probably Instagram. It's author Ben Reeves. That's where people are chatting to me and saying hello. And that's probably the best place at the moment. There is also benreeves.co.uk if you're so inclined. There's like a blog and stuff on there as well.
Awesome. Ben, thank you for joining us from the UK. I think it's nighttime there. You came to us late. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for being on the Friends and Fiction show.
It's been a huge pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting me. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, we were so happy to have you. So everyone out there, be sure to tune in next week when the Fab Four will be together live to celebrate my new novel. Gosh, Patti, is that next week? That's crazy.
Next week. That's what I was saying.
We'll be celebrating my new novel a week before it comes out, and it's called Meet Me in Paris, if you haven't heard us mentioning it on here. And we have so many surprises for you. That show will air live on the Friends in Fiction Facebook page and YouTube channel on Wednesday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it'll be published to our podcast for your listening pleasure on Friday, July 24th.
I don't know if it's going to be a listening pleasure, if you know what I mean.
You're listening horror. I mean,
I don't know. There's some things coming on that one. All right. Thank you to all of you for being here with us, and we will see you next time.
Good night. Thanks for tuning in to Friends and Fiction, hosted by New York Times bestselling authors Mary Kay Andrews, Patti Callahan Henry, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Kristin Harmel. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, subscribe to our Substack newsletter, and catch us on Facebook and YouTube, where a new episode of our show airs every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also listen to Friends and Fiction wherever you get your podcasts. Find out about all this and more at friendsandfiction.com. We're so glad you're here.